Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of The Bridge, Comedy Without Borders. If you don't know, The Bridge is about exchanging information and resources between certain disciplines amongst notable people. You all are notable people. My co-host Kutlwano Ditsele from South Africa, producer. My co-host Tariq Black Thought Trotter, musician, actor, producer, scorer, and also comedian. Tariq has been doing a series called Delirious the last year. He's pretty freaking funny. Lee Somadiga from South Africa, Johannesburg, who is also an actor. He just did his debut in the hit show Queen Sonos, South Africa's first Netflix's first African original show.
Oh wow!
Eddie Kadi, British Congolese. Eddie is the host of all hosts. He does annual TEDx's. He did the Starboy Festival in London, as well as the All African Music Awards. And Mr. Chris Spencer from Inglewood, stand-up writer and Bruin. UCLA Bruin.
Yes.
Dope.
All righty, gentlemen.
Wait, time out. You gave them all these credits and all I get is the school I graduated from?
Inglewood.
Have you done
I ain't got no platinum albums behind me.
I can't remember.
And I'm not on Johannesburg's Netflix or whatever.
Chris is a comedy writer. He does.
That's okay. It's too late. I'm hurt. Go ahead.
No,
I knew you before all these things.
NAACP
And Chris, he can read.
Mark Twain guys for America.
He really enjoys eating.
I think one of the not the most recent, but one of the last times I saw Chris, that Inglewood was coming out. We were at the White House, and he was
telling people who I am.
He was at the White House, but see, it's always like two worlds meeting. Because it's like, all right, yeah, Chris Spencer at the White House, like we in here. He was trying to steal the boots off of my feet that day.
Yeah. I kept
right.
It was smooth.
All right, gentlemen, I would love you to tell me a little bit about. I want to know how closely related we are as far as our origin stories. So, Lisa, why don't you tell me where you're from and how you got into comedy?
Where I'm from is a village not even Kutlwano knows, in the Eastern Cape, Smonkong. And I came to Joburg after high school, trying to get a job, studied advertising and all that, but I just hated it. And I left it. And as I left it, I just happened to get into stand-up. Like I had a friend I worked with, he was getting into stand-up, and I went to a couple of his shows, and it's not something you see and you don't, like you want to do it. You just like, no, you're like, I can, come on, I can do it for 3 minutes. At least I can do it for 3 minutes. So I asked him for a spot, and it's like, as I got on, before my first joke, I got on stage and I was just like, yeah, this forever. That was it. I was like, and it went well. Like,
how did you know you were funny?
The crowd laughed. That's the only way.
No, I mean, before you decided I'm going to be a comedian, like, who told you you were funny?
I think, no one ever told me I was funny. I think I loved humor. I loved jokes so much. I wanted to be funny. I think I just cared about it that much. Like I read joke books and I thought they were magic. I was like, how do people come up with this? This is insane. This is genius. And so I was just always like aware of funny, aware of like what people are doing. I was always aware of who's the funny person in the group. And I just like watch them and be like, how's he doing that? The timing was insane. Like, how did you do that so quickly? All that kind of, so it was just like a natural fascination with me was humor.
Eddie, are you born in?
So I was born in Congo.
Okay.
I was born in Congo. We moved to the UK at the age of 9. It was my parents' decisions, obviously. But for me, I have great memories of being back home. And usually in my jokes, I often talk about how, I escaped to war and gunshots, and it's all a lie. I've never seen it. But it was always the best narrative because people expect you were from Congo. I say, yeah, my next door neighbor was a rifle, stuff like that. So, that never happened. My dad literally came over just to seek a better life, better opportunities. He came over to study, and he was like, I like it here. We're not going back. and then pulled us over. Literally, was like, come over. But so for me, I grew up, I wouldn't say a shy child, but just pretty much just a normal kid. Wasn't necessarily a fan of stand-up. I wasn't really into stand-up. What's crazy is that growing up, all the actors such as the Eddie Murphy and the Robin Williams and Steve Martin, I knew them as actors. It was crazy. When I watched Beverly Hills Cop, I never really connected to their stand-up aspect until I became a comedian or became more interested in comedy. So all the way up to university, as an African, you have to finish university in this country. It's like, why are you here? Why?
Like a little jab, like
I'm
as an African. Like, I don't know about y'all motherfuckers, but
you know, parents go to weddings. Parents go to weddings and say, "Give me one more chicken." My son has a degree. You know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, man. So we put together our first ever talent show. This was in 2002, Kingston University, right in South London, and we wanted to book, at the time, a young comedian called Kojo, who's now, you know, many may know, he's now a veteran. He's gone on to do Britain's Got Talent. He's done well. And he was too expensive for our students. So everyone was like, why don't you just do it? Just do what you do usually at the meetings. I'm like, no, man, I'm not hosting no talent show. This is a big deal. So literally just be that. So for me to get over that hurdle, I pretended to be my friend's Nigerian uncle for 2 hours on stage. We literally used to just mock him because his uncle would be on the phone and around. How is school? How's university? I know you are passing well. You know the family you are from. So I literally did that for 2 hours, man. And killed it. Everybody loved the accent. They loved the fact that I didn't care. I was proud of being African at the time. It was well celebrated. And I will never forget how I knew that this was for me. Not even stand-up, just hosting and being funny. A lady came up to me, a young girl came up to me and she said, I'm from such university and we would love to have you on our uni showcase. And I was like, man, I would love to. Then she said, how much do you charge? I said, what? Oh, I couldn't even spell the word charge at the time, Tina. I said, charge. When the African in me came, I was like, charge. Yes, I charge. I didn't know what I charged. I'm like, I'll get back to you.
Like, should I have charged for this one?
My friend, I charged for this conversation. You know, the rest was history, man. I knew at that moment that, you know what, I want to do this in some capacity. I want to perform, you know? Yeah.
Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
What was your road from Inglewood?
Well, let me see. My parents are Jamaican. I got to figure out a way to be a special.
Trying to be exotic.
Yeah, man. So I feel like I'm talking to the cast of Top Boy right now. Anyway, Inglewood, boom. Left, moved to Pasadena. I went to UCLA with this young lady right here. Started doing stand-up. Like, so the white boys have these fraternities, right? And they have these things called Rush Week where they want people to come join their fraternity. And so me and a group of guys started doing stand-up at these fraternity houses. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth. Then I did open mic at the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory. And my first time I was very funny. I was like, this shit is easy. The second time, not so easy. And so after that, I kept doing local stuff. And then Damon Wayans' agent saw me and was like, yo, I'd like for you to go on the road. I was like, well, Damon Wayans? He's like, no, I also represent Jeff Foxworthy. I was like, oh. So I don't know if you guys know who Jeff Foxworthy is. He's
of course
the blue collar, the guy, okay, the redneck. So I was the opening act on the redneck tour. I was the honorary brown neck on the redneck tour. My first city, Lynchburg, Virginia.
Wow. I mean, that the comedy is writing itself.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.
So I had never been to, I mean, we go to the South. I go to Atlanta. You know what I mean? I go to, parts of Florida, but I'd never been to like some of these towns. And
like the real South.
Yeah, so some of my first jokes dealt with them. So I was like, Jeff's brother is one of the guys that's helping us with selling merchandise. And I think he's racist, but I'm not sure. I said, only reason I felt like this is because every time we played Monopoly, whenever I would land on his property, he would move.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my first jokes.
Jeff Foxworthy does that whole routine about how you're
a redneck. Yeah. So I later, through his influence, wrote a book called 150 Ways to Tell If You're Ghetto.
Oh shit!
I wrote with Sean Wayans and another guy, Sully McCullough. I don't know if you guys ever seen who went to school with us as well. The movie "Don't Be a Menace to South Central" or drinking the juice. Okay, so the guy in the wheelchair.
Oh,
Mouse on the Jamie Foxx show. Him and I were roommates, and so we wrote that book together with Sean Wayans. So yeah, it was inspired by Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck if.
Wow.
And then from there, writing. The writing kind of came as an accident because the acting slowed up. So I started writing on award shows for my friends, because if your friend books a big gig, who would you not want to write for you than somebody who knows your voice? So Jamie Foxx gets the ESPYs, MTV Awards. He's going to get the comedians around him. Cedric the Entertainer, Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish. Who better to write for you than somebody who really knows you? And so that's how the writing came. And then the series Real Husbands of Hollywood spawned off of a sketch that was done on the BET Awards. And I've been writing ever since.
Oh, that's dope.
Dope.
Incredible.
That's the read.
You compensated well for Tina's intro for you.
Yeah. No, you put it right back.
Listen, you guys, we set that up, by the way.
We had a moment of silence for your accolades.
Yeah. I was on bridge 1 and 2.
You've been acting and rapping and writing. How did you mosey into comedy?
Into comedy? I've always just enjoyed storytelling. And, when you're telling a story, you want to, engage your audience in some way. So, I feel like, like sometimes I'll get into telling the story on the tour bus or in the dressing room or whatever, and I'll get into doing impressions or become more animated and telling the story. And there's a point at which you realize you got them, you know what I mean? Like you got the audience sort of in the palm of your hand. And that's a feeling like no other. It's a feeling, it's different from if I'm killing it on stage with, 50,000 people. If I got, 5 or 10 people sort of, in the palm of my hands, just like waiting for the next thing that I say, it's just that, like, that's the reward of like being a comedian. And it's a high. And it's the sort of thing where if you stop, like sometimes if you're doing different exercises in the gym, or even like if you're riding a bike, they say if you look down, you fall down. So it's something that you have to sort of embrace and live it in the moment. Because if you stop, even for a brief second, to say, oh, wow, I got them. Like, they thought that last thing I said was funny. Then there's, that little split second of dead air, of, sort of just negative space where you've lost it. And I don't know, there's something about that feeling that, it keep calling me, So when I got a chance to do, we started working at the Tonight Show, and Seth Herzog, who's the warm-up comedian at the Tonight Show, he's had a residency at this place in New York City for over 10, 12 years now. And he started asking Questlove and me to come out and just do extra shit. Sometimes it would be something musical, and sometimes, not. And I got into, just telling stories about shit that really gets on my nerves. And that sort of evolved into a thing, like my irk list. I think it started as something that I call my shit list. And it was a literal sort of a notebook that I would pull out and just run down stuff. It'd be legendary shit that's always, piss me off. And then it could be something that just happened to me on my way to the venue. And, just through trial and error, I figured out that, folks sort of like that. And that became my thing. And that evolved into something that we do on the Tonight Show now. We couldn't call it the shit list, but we call it the irk list. And, with the whole thing with Delirious, I wanted to do something. Just anything where I don't have to sing songs is engaging. No, after you've done one thing,
anything,
like anything where I can be creative. And
you get so tired of all this platinum shit. You want to like, I have no more room for platinum albums, guys. Shit.
Any opportunity to create the way not have to rap,
gotta be something else I can dominate. What else?
It's like it resonates with me. So I started doing this, monthly thing in Philly. And initially, I was just presenting comics. It was like Black Thought Presents, and lots of different comics from New York City and West Coast and Midwest, all over, would come and rock out for me. It began as something where I would do a verse, I would perform like at either the top or at the end of it. But after a couple times in, that felt unauthentic, and I felt like I was doing a disservice to the art form by saying I'm presenting a comedy thing and then still somehow making it about my music. So I said, if I'm gonna do it, I should at least, do a couple minutes of comedy. And I started coming out at the top and doing 3 minutes, and then that evolved into 5 minutes. And once I had 15 minutes of making people laugh, I took the shit on the road, and we started doing festivals. I did, Just for Laughs, and New York City Comedy Festival.
The guys are like, oh, really?
I mean, hey, man, when you got it, you got it. You know what I mean? Funny, strange enough, I've never bombed. Like, the closest I've come to bombing was when I came back home. When I came back to Philly, feeling like, oh, I'm a comic now. They shut my shit down. It was like,
they're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
sing my song.
No, you're not.
Black thoughts, not black jokes.
Yeah, yeah. I did. I tried it at a different venue, like there wasn't a comedy club in Philly, and it didn't go. I mean, I won them over in the end, but it wasn't. Right. I got a taste of what it was like to sort of take the training wheels off. But I have the utmost respect for stand-up comics because of just the bravery that it sort of takes to get out there and do that. It's different for me if I come out with a light show and people doing gymnastics with live instruments in their hands and all this crazy amplification and special effects and shit. To just come out there and have a microphone or sometimes not, and to have one light or sometimes not, and to have to sort of get people on board with something that you're doing that's so personal, it takes a different sort of bravery. And for me, it's been an exercise in overcoming my sort of, introvertedness. You know what I mean? So I've been able to go back and apply the skills that I acquired from doing stand-up to my live performance. And I've been able to sort of elevate what I do on stage in that way.
And so has that allowed, I mean, obviously people knowing you as Black Thought, how do you then rock up into a comedy room and say, yo, book me for the night?
He says I'm Black Thought. You don't work that hard.
It's like,
Black comic. He's like this.
Excuse me.
Hey, you recognize
Tell Chappelle he's after me.
Comedy stores are hard to get put on too, right?
Yeah. I think people are so curious to see what the juxtaposition is like. How is that possible? How is this artist who's such a militant, who's so, material is so socio-politically conscious, who's been so serious for so long. I guess now it's easier because we do the Tonight Show,
right?
But, like pre-Tonight Show, I never had an outlet to be funny, publicly.
But I guess that's what makes it so good. That's what makes it so special, because of all those things that you are. The outlet is the stand-up for a lot of comedians, actually.
For sure.
And also sometimes,
serious people, and they want an outlet, and you always see a different side to them when they get on that stage as well.
Yeah.
The fact that you're doing well is a testament to you being good, because Black people are dying for a celebrity to do bad. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that you can we'll give you 2 or 3 minutes. Oh shit, they go Black. Okay. Then it's like my favorite thing in the world to do. I have a room out here in Inglewood called the Savoy. And anytime an actor or a celebrity says, I'm doing stand-up, I'm like, nigga, you're next. My goal is to watch that heat crawl up on the motherfuckers at 3:26.
You call it.
We got all hype. Oh shit, yeah, oh yeah. Then all of a sudden, that goddamn hawk come get him.
But
when outside opens back up, I wanna do it. I wanna come out there and do the
done.
Yo, but
the true test. I'm sorry, Eddie.
You know what I appreciate? I appreciate the part where you said you realize that you're doing the craft a disservice by just kind of going back to the performing. Because
we were all like this.
I don't know about the guys. I stand up, man. We find out. I get annoyed when a non-comic is hosting the show. It's like it
pray for their
failure. It's like, come on stage and dance for me, my people. Dance, come on. It's like you've got to relate, man. Like you better be funny too. Don't now be a member of the audience on stage with us. You know, so I appreciate that thought.
Yeah, no, we really needed to hear that because we were all like,
yeah, we were looking at you sideways. You literally.
I've been killing all over the world. It's like, word.
I'm never doing Chris's show. It seems like a trap.
Don't do my show. Listen, everything you've read about niggas is at this show.
Wow.
It depends on the night. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. It just depends on the night because like if I have a star come, then the element is there, and sometimes it gets a little too noisy. Like I would never perform in my room if I wasn't the host, because there's people in the aisles and the owners and the security don't really do a good job. I would tell you, like on a regular night, on a regular night where it's calm, that'd be the night I would want you to come. You know what I mean?
All right.
But if if Mike Epps is on or Cedric is or somebody's booked, I'm gonna get you up early. But if it started getting, you know, if you start smelling,
if I come out there to do that shit, I need to do it like while they setting the tables up. And
yes. If you start smelling,
they're cooking the chicken.
Yeah.
If you start smelling weave glue, it means it's getting late. The lights. I got to get you out of there, Chief. But what I do, I make sure, like, if you call me and you're coming to town, I'm going to make sure you do every room that's available. I'm going to call the Comedy Union. I'm going to call Pookie at Chocolate Sundays. I'm going to call D-Ray on Mondays. I'm going to make sure the red carpet.
We're still recording, right?
No.
Yeah,
we're not recording.
I just want to.
Yeah.
I want
to make sure
right here.
The red carpet is rolled out for you guys because.
Thank you.
When I came to London, Kojo did that for me. When I come to New York, Will Sylvince does that for me. When I come to Atlanta, Rodney Perry does that for me. So I think it's important that we show each other that we have respect for each other. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And
yeah.
And I want to see you guys do bad in all these rooms. Like shit. How did he do so well on Triple on Tuesdays? Oh, there's gotta be a tougher room.
I've still got my pen waiting for to steal Luis's process. Go on, Luis.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Here's the thing. So coming to LA as a South African act, I found like over the years watching guys from other countries and watching SA acts is one thing about SA acts is that South Africa is so insanely diverse. I mean, just the languages alone. And then there's the culture, multiple cultures, and like you know how it is. Like a city will have multiple cultures within itself, and so as a comic, you're constantly figuring things out. As a South African act, there is no like I'm a New York act, as you would have a New York act. In South Africa, it's like one room changes so hard from the next room that you constantly. So by the time I'm traveling, my eyes are like, what's happening here? What's the difference here? How are they laughing? What are they laughing at?
So have you done comedy in UK?
No, not the UK actually. I don't know why. I still haven't been there.
Yeah, because I think it was perfect. It's crazy.
I did like random rooms at the Edinburgh Festival because I was just there to check it out, but never like properly tried to come to.
Edinburgh's a hard stage because they literally come and say, you're either funny or you're not. You know, the Fringe.
Yeah.
The quick 5 minutes. As well.
Yeah.
That would be.
Those are tough.
I say it's always perfect in the UK, to be fair.
Is Kutlwano on mute? Because he hasn't said nothing in about 2 months. We're gonna find out he's a spy.
Come on, man.
They do not like you.
Bro, he's there auctioning art. Come on now.
Sorry.
Okay.
Kutlwano is still like, can they still see Michael Jordan?
Wait, Tariq, you see that picture behind him? Who does that look like?
Tyrese Gordon.
Tyrese.
I cannot.
Wait, time out. Did you hear me say that?
Tyrese,
Both
man.
said that.
Did you really hear me? Did you hear me say that before?
Say Tyrese.
No, he wasn't on.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Look,
He wasn't on.
Kutlwano
That's hilarious.
Kutlwano and that paint behind him looked like John Legend and Tyrese doing a duet.
It was actually a gift from a friend of mine, Tebo Khomalupa, who directed Loiso.
And they told you it's Michael Jordan.
Oh, what happened was she was like,
You know what?
she was like this.
I love Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Kutlwano, you're making us look bad. This is the Nelson Mandela versus Morgan Freeman mistake that you're making for us.
Right.
No, this is Michael Jordan. This is Michael Jordan.
The lady who made it was like, this shit does not look like Michael Jordan. Who can I give this to?
I mean, shit, Eddie got a picture of Tyrese behind him too. Like,
I'll tell you something.
They all worship Tyrese in Africa.
Oh, this is what's hilarious. I've been told many times I look like Tyrese. And that happens to be me. So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take this.
Tonight we found out that Baby Boy is the #1 movie in Africa.
In Africa.
Right now.
Baby Boy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Eddie,
Yeah.
what is the process to get on stage in London? Are the rooms tough to get into? I've only been into like 2.
You know, with London actually, we were blessed. So I could talk about when I first started to stand up, and the black comedy scene was what they would call underground, but it was just so wide and varied, and there were so many rooms. But we had one particular space which was called Koja's Comedy Club, which has served many people. Chris has just mentioned coming down to the UK and Koja looking after him. But from early on 2002 all the way up until I reckon 2016, Koja's Comedy Club literally churned out new comics. That was a platform, a stage for us, by us. And you literally had the latest comedian all the way to the Chris Rocks and the Dave Chappelles who would pass through, And that place gave you the confidence to actually be able to do other rooms. So what we did as black comedians, we were able to sustain ourselves because we could go from a small room to a big, Hackney Empire, 2,000 capacity venues, and it still be by a black promoter, with an all black audience. And we found confidence in telling our stories. And I think probably in the last few years, there's been, I reckon with the introduction of the internet, a lot more comics are going online and just saying, listen, I don't want to go to comedy clubs. I'm just going to perform in front of on my phone, let it out there, blow, and then I can get booked. So you have less comedy clubs in terms of our sort of industry. But yeah, literally, like we a lot of the stand-up comedians will usually hold their clubs. They don't do it as much. We don't have as many Sunday show nights or Saturdays. As black people, we love to dress up, man. Now, and I mean prior to the lockdown, of course, you don't get as many of those shows. But also a few of the comics have gone mainstream as well. So that's kind of opened the doors a little bit more. I mean, just this year with Koja doing Britain's Got Talent, that was a big deal, And then we have Mo the comedian, who was a stand-up prior to blowing up on the internet with his characters. So that kind of aligned. By the time he was noticed, he was ready with his material. So he went straight to mainstream, straight to Netflix, like he's flying,
Is Mo, what's his last name?
Mo Gilligan.
Mo Gilligan. You guys think he's funny?
I think no, Mo's funny.
Okay.
We get together.
I saw the special. I want to check it out.
Yeah, we get together. So what made me happy was, I stand up. You often go, okay, just because you're performing on the internet and you're doing all the cuts and edits, it doesn't mean you can live life. Right. And Mo was doing this, but we already knew that Mo was funny. I knew of Mo being a funny guy, so we were like, this is one of those moments where when it does happen, we can actually be really happy because it's going to serve. And he was ready.
That theater he shot it at looks beautiful. Where was that?
Oh yeah, so that was Hackney Empire. So that's the theater I'm talking about. I mean, we've all done our one-man shows there. It is made for comedy. I remember doing 2015, doing the back-to-back 2 nights and that venue. It's a beautiful feeling. But it was also crazy, right? So Tino will know a little bit about this. And my brother Suede, who's swirling around in production right now, was when it comes to the States. I've never done a comedy club in the States. And I guess with me, my story's always been one foot into hosting shows and, kind of emceeing events and doing stand-up. And most of my stand-ups outside of the UK would always be in Africa. But actually, me being the African comedian, let's say, is what took me to America. And the stages I did in the States were just crazy, because for me, it was the Lauryn Hill and Nas tour that actually gave me my exposure to the American audience in terms of stand-up. You know what I mean? These people came out to watch legends, and it was a music audience. But the first time was at the King's Theatre in Brooklyn, and it was a conversation of Lauren wanting some sort of, you know, diaspora influence. And for me, I was like, this is crazy. But it's Lauryn Hill.
That's
I
insane.
would say no.
So how much time did you have to do when she was late?
We had him fill in.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did
Why?
an hour and 17
Why are
minutes.
you
I was the just in case guy. I was like,
But I want to know, like, you know, as a comedian and having acting ambitions, I mean, how's that been for you navigating that in a country that doesn't take comedy seriously on television, on primetime TV?
Yeah, man, that's a good question, because I think we've pitched 1,000 shows trying to get them onto TV, but I think South Africans haven't found their TV comedy voice yet, which is weird because we've had lots of hit shows in the past. But right now it's almost like we've lost ourselves, actually, because I watch our comedy shows and I'm like, oh, that's an American type comedy setup. That joke was set up in a very American kind of a way. And so I think we've just lost our voice. So it's hard to sell it, because then South Africans are, I don't care what you say about our audiences, but they know what they like. So if the comedy is not working, it's not the audience, it's, you know, it's what we're putting out there. And it's literally a point of where for some reason we moved away from our own types of comedy. We didn't grow our comedy. We didn't go, that's our comedy in the 80s and 90s, and this is how it's kind of like growing into something. It's almost like we rejected the past. We're in the trap music stage of our comedy right now, where it's like, yo, fuck the past, this is what we're doing now. And it's not connecting. It's just not connecting.
Can you tell me the difference, like, between the American, like how you could tell that an American, whatever, created that show? Or that
well, I guess we just grew up on so much American content. You pick it up, you go, that's not how we talk. That's not how, that's not what my father, like, I would watch a scenario where I'm like, that's not how South Africans talk to their fathers. You'd never said that to your father. Because it's got to come from a real place where people can go, he just said that, and then the tension is broken in the comedic way. So when I'm watching something and I'm like, but that never happens anywhere here in this country. So it takes away, I can't even suspend my disbelief for a second, because I'm too confused as to what the dynamic that I'm watching is. So I think we just got to get back to, and I think I just got to get back to being ourselves.
When you did Daily Show, did you write that, or?
Yeah, so I wrote that with the team this side, but I mean, like, we were working with the guys that side, so they would review the work and stuff, and they pretty much gave us freedom. I mean, like, they just prove a concept, and then we would just fly with it, and they'd see the edit, and that's the next time they see a piece of work. So we had our freedom, we had our voice, and yeah.
Is there no version of the Daily Show in South Africa?
Good question.
There was, and then he was like, I'm going to London, bruv.
Is the goal to get out of South Africa? Is it considered a small?
Not necessarily.
Because it's so diverse and so big.
Yeah, there's more than enough space, and also with comedy, the world is the world. So I don't think there's a need for I do comedy here. I think it's self-limiting if you do that. So there's always room to still grow in SA, but why not grow? There's people who will appreciate you in other places too. So I think he was also going, he had hit the top here. I mean, like, there's only so much you can grow vertically. Right. So he was like, okay, I can still grow laterally, but let me also grow elsewhere in other places. I mean, like, he still comes back here, he still does shows, you know. So I don't think it's a get out of South Africa situation. I think we're always looking for growth. As a comic, you're always criticizing yourself.
You want to expand, you want to discover,
you
want to discover new places. For sure.
I understand performing in new places, but is the goal to become, all right, I dominated here. The goal is to go to LA or to go to London to have my own series, my own show. You know what I mean? Like, Hollywood is like the end all. for us.
I don't think that's a generic. That's a general thing. I think there's certain people who have those aspirations.
Right.
That's not necessarily. There are guys who have no need in South Africa. There are some of the biggest comics have no need to go beyond their market, and I'm talking about like province. They go, I speak to Spedi speaking people, and I have no need for Zulu people to understand me or English speak. They like don't care, and that's who they make mad money from it and mad love, and you know they're growing careers. So there's no, really no, there's no. It's not like I'm like, oh man, I didn't get that Hollywood ticket. I need to go back to my 9 to 5.
But
There's
I think,
more than enough space.
What's also like really important to point out is that if you look across the continent, it's about the content that's put out. So a lot of people that are at home are seeing a lot of foreign content, the movies we watch, the best stand-ups, you know, some of the commercials, everything, the music videos. It's either UK or it's the US. So, you know, so you're just like, well, that's where I need to be. Gotcha. Because sometimes as well, when you don't see content from home, you're not in a position where you can appreciate, kind of be like, there's enough for me here. And imagine you're around the corner from Hollywood, right? So you're just like, yo, it's in my backyard. But for someone that may be in Congo, Nigeria, or SA, it's Hollywood, because this is what we're getting. That's where we need to be. Right. This is everything that we celebrate. You know? So it's just perception.
How was the Nigerian comedy market?
Huge.
Huge, right?
Huge.
You guys come from Nigeria?
Nigeria. So
I haven't yet.
I've done Nigeria for the last however many years. The Nigerian comedy market is very interesting. So the positive side is Nigeria is so big, so many different dialects, and they all kind of unite with broken English, pidgin English, right? And that's like that's their language, man. That's their street language. But the issue is most of the comedians, I'll say 95% of them do comedy in pidgin, and they do it consistently in pidgin. So now when you go to Nigeria, there's only a handful of comics like the Basket Mouth or maybe a comedian called Bob V and a couple of them that will do it in full English. So these guys have been able to now cross over the continent. So if you, in a place where, you know, you expect so many comedians that exist, you would think they'll bombard the whole of Africa. But the guys will tell you, when you go to SA, you only see Basket Mouth, you know, and he's fantastic. But because of the limitation they've set themselves when it comes to the language barrier, you hardly see Nigerian doing, you know, mainstream comedy outside of Nigeria, you know, or outside of Africa in general. But there are amazing comics within their dialects. And that goes back to what we were talking about, you know, people trying to, do you want to just stay and kind of conquer? They are happy. Nigerians are happy. Nigerians. My God, 200 million people, my bro.
They don't even do anything.
They are millionaires. They are movie stars.
Last year I was in Rwanda doing a show there, and you realize that East Africa has its own scene. Like you don't they don't need anything else but East Africa. Yeah, this Swahili cats are just touring around like all those countries there, and they don't need anybody else. And you know Africa is huge. So if I go, I'm a huge South African act. I'm a huge act. But if I go, I'm a huge African act. I'm a fucking huge act.
Who's a huge African act? Basket Mouth?
Basket Mouth.
Is a huge African act.
Yeah, Basket Mouth.
Yeah,
he's
anywhere and everywhere. He's anywhere and everywhere.
How many seats is he selling out?
How many seats does he want to sell out?
Like that?
Bro, listen.
He did O2. No, he did O2 Arena.
He didn't do O2. He did Wembley. He done Wembley Arena.
Wembley O2.
Like 3 times. Yeah. So then he just recently did the O2 Brixton Academy. So that's the smaller, but it's like what 6,000 capacity.
6,000.
He will do that every year in the UK. You have to understand, in the UK, Basket Mouth will do Wembley Arena, get 6,000 seats, and it will be 90% Nigerians. He can go to Dallas and Texas and do 6,000 seats. It will be Nigerians.
90% Nigerians. Yeah,
my brother, don't worry about them. We will show them that we exist. That's Nigeria. Oh, so are you telling me that the Grammys don't want to give you a seat? We will create our own Grammys. They will like Nigerians, I respect them for that role. You know, it's almost like what BET did in the States, right? I feel that and I love that. The fact that it was like, no, we will create our own platform and they will hear us singing. They will hear us laughing and they're going to want to join us.
Yeah.
Are you guys all good at different dialects and accents? African, South African, Nigerian, Ghanaian?
You do what you can.
There's a billion dialects.
This is.
No, are you good I mean, I see that Eddie is good at them. Are you guys all good at them? Because you guys are constantly with these people. You know what I mean? Like, I could do a nigga from South Central. I could do somebody from New York. Like, can you guys do that with all these other accents? It's amazing now.
I had to do for this Queen Sono thing. I had to learn a French Congolese accent, which was
fantastic, by the way, bro.
Thank you. I need a Congolese person to go. I did the thing.
I was about to say, it wouldn't matter if I say it, he's gonna say it.
Yeah, he's gonna say it. When you say it, I'm like, yeah, you hear the same thing.
It doesn't matter if I say it was good.
Your accent is so smooth already. I don't think any girl has ever told you no. It's so smooth. Why I mean, the panties are bothering you, no? Take them off.
You know what? It depends. It depends on what parts of the continent that you spend the most time in. You kind of acquire the accent.
Right.
And for me, I've been blessed enough in the UK. You know, it's such a melting pot with African communities, but the majority of them are Nigerians and Ghanaians. And very early on, we just knew the difference between a Ghanaian and Nigerian. Nigerians are very forthcoming. I'm always very careful in the type of what vocabulary I use when I'm describing Nigerians. I use words like passionate.
Use the words they describe the Italians with.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yo, when we talk about Ghanaians, right?
That's
Ghanaian people
brilliant.
were like Ghanaians when they talk, it's like they're doing a cappella. They're like they're singing. You ask a Ghanaian for directions, they'll be like, okay, so you want to go to the comedy show. Okay, so when you go and you sit around, yeah. Whereas Nigerians, a roundabout will sound like a place you don't want to be. Well, you don't know where the roundabout is. When you reach the roundabout,
That's so great. I did this bit in my first. I do this bit about the South African accents and like the differences between them, because there's no one South African accent, right? For instance, like the Xhosa accent, because it's a very like melodic language. So in English, it also sounds like we're singing everything. It's like, hey, chap, do you know the thing that came over here, chap? No, I didn't see it. Boy.
Oh my God.
And then you got Betty people, particularly in Pretoria here in Joburg, and they sound like they have a blocked nose and a stutter when they speak English. No, I didn't know James came in the morning and they didn't see anything. I didn't see the boy.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so accents are almost like count them as a cheat code in South Africa, because it's such like a prevalent
in
thing.
And out of shit, right? They get you in and out of shit because you can't be stopped by a traffic officer and come with the accent that you're speaking with right now. You're fine.
No. I changed. Yeah. Oh, you gotta change.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in stand-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in stand-up, because my accent, like I'll get to a place and I can be seen by other black people as snobbish.
Right.
Just from the way. So I might go, you know, tonight my set is full Xhosa, man. I'm not speaking English for shit. I'm not about to lose them on hello. Oh, hell no.
That's what happened. Trevor, are you and Trevor from the same place or similar? Because your accent seems similar to me.
What? I don't know why Trevor and I speak similarly. He's from Joburg. I'm from like.
You guys.
I'm from Eastern Cape. I think this is what black people sound like when they go to white schools.
You sound like South African Sidney Poitiers.
Hey, Chris, you are out here to destroy us.
Who is coming to dinner?
Can we edit Chris out of the show?
Listen, are you guys familiar with Major Hype?
Yeah, I did a show with Major in.
Tariq, have you ever seen him?
I'm sorry.
Major Hype.
Oh no.
Oh my! He's this dude who can do every Caribbean accent you've ever heard, or Guyanese, Jamaican, Trinidadian, he's incredible. Look him up.
I'm gonna look it up as soon as
Major, M-A-J-A-A.
Man, he did an hour of just different accents, different Caribbean accents, and I was in tears.
Eddie, both of you guys could do that.
Every time I try to do a Jamaican accent, it ends up sounding Irish. I don't know how it happens.
It happens.
It starts off Jamaican.
We're talking about changing for your audience. So, Chris, you must change for your audience when you go to the East Coast versus the West Coast. Reek, have you done that with Delirious, going from Philly when you did it in San Francisco?
What I have done, like my material sort of remains the same in that it's personal, but I try and, I definitely adjust my references to something locally. Like when I did that, I forget the name of the festival that I did in San Francisco. But yeah, we did this comedy festival in San Francisco where The Roots did a performance, and we were billed as one of the musical acts. And then I also had Delirious a couple hours later in like a different room. And my in-laws, Michelle's parents and most of her family are from San Francisco and Oakland. They from the Bay. So I adjusted my material to where I was talking about them. Just so I could make it, I could give the people where I was something to sort of identify with. If you have the option to do that in an authentic way, then I would say, do it. But I mean, they're going to smell if it's fake, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to come from a real
I just want to know, I want, because like obviously with rap music, it's the idea and then the words matter. Like every word matters when you actually do the execution. Is it the same for you with stand-up, or are you like a these are the words for the story, or do you give yourself freedom when you tell your stories in stand-up?
I give myself freedom. There are bullet points that I have to hit, and I make sure I hit those. And this is just what I've learned from watching other comics, especially people. When folks come on to do the Tonight Show, I'm like 5 feet away from whoever the stand-up guest is, and I'm looking at their cue cards, and I realize that they're not reading from the script. But I've seen people do their act on multiple occasions, and I've seen the same sort of act, the same information told 3, 4, 5 different ways. So that's sort of what I've incorporated into what I do. I make sure I hit the same bullet points, but I give myself a little leeway to take liberty in between those points.
I want to ask. I want an honest answer in what I'm about to ask. Right? When it comes to it's coming. So I'm talking about, so your perception of, let's say, Africans are African comedians, right? When they come over, or if they would say there's an African cat who's coming over and is going to do stand up to that. Do you guys have a certain expectation of what kind of material you're going to hear based on maybe experiences you've had of Africans or certain comics that you might have on the circuit already or whatever? Like, is there a certain expectation that will go, actually, I wasn't expected to hear it, so I would love to hear this? Because, as comics, I look at it as, I want to be able to tell a story about, just like you're telling a story about your family, how you grew up, about life. And I don't see any difference in I just happen to be African. But do you guys have a certain expectation or perception when it comes to, when you think of African comedy?
Not at all. I think if you're over here, you must be already funny. You know what I mean? Like, if this motherfucker is all the way over here, he must be the shit already, or he's in a festival, or he's got an audition, or he's got some big casting meeting. And so, like, ask Trevor. I took Trevor around. Like, and Trevor kind of credits me with helping him deal with an urban audience in the States. Because now, Trevor, who talks like Luis, so he was, he's very stately. And I learned earlier from TK Kirkland, who you guys both know, T to the motherfucking K. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of him. I was very collegiate on stage, and I wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. And he's like, you need to go to the edge of the stage and let these niggas know you ain't scared of them, right? Literally how he told me. Go to the edge, and you don't have to be, you don't have to create a persona. Just let these motherfuckers know that this is what I do, and there's nobody better than me at this moment. So when an African comedian comes over here, the audience is excited. You know what I mean? Because all of us want you guys to love us. You know what I mean? And we want to love you. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a mystery.
Yeah, man.
At least with me. You know what I mean? So when you guys come over here and share your stories and the material, it's refreshing. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting what you just hit there, man.
Yes,
that we want to love each other. We want to talk to you. Because I remember for years, some of the tours we was doing in the UK, Tony Woods, one of my absolute just
did a show with him.
Oh man, like what a guy. And we looked at the OG. He was hilarious. You know him better than me. He'll come on the mic and just stand there for half an hour. Only his lips will be moving, and every now and then he'll show you his teeth. but you would be pissed at yourself, right?
Right.
Whenever I came on, as I was, young and fresh, and I was very excited, and I really wanted to tell my story. I'm here in Great Britain, and I really want to talk about being an African in Great Britain, trying to be British but remaining African. That story. And he would always come back to me and be like, every time you go on stage, I'm focused. Everything you're saying to me is so brand new. It's exciting.
It's
right?
exciting, dude. For
but
real.
Then I don't think I ever took that feedback to translate it back to, going over to the States and really now, a lot older with all the narratives with, Pan-Africanism and just us uniting and crossing over, all the stuff happening in Ghana, year of return and all, like it just boosts the confidence of that conversation needed to be had, but it can so beautifully be translated in how we convey our stories and our
You know what's dope about it is that when you guys come over here, a lot of us, they lump Africa into this one thing and all the Africans do the same thing. But when we hear there's so many different dialects and so many different cultures and so many different people, and we're like this. You know what I mean? Like it's so interesting to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Book me in the Savoy, man. I'm coming.
But not at the Savoy. You better pull your dick out of the Savoy.
How did I know that was coming?
Yeah, don't be. Yeah. I wouldn't even take you to the. No, you don't love you at the Savoy as well.
I'm gonna start with my best Snoop lyrics and then ease myself in.
As you do anywhere, you want to hit them with the shit that works, the tried and true, and then you play, and then see if I can play, if not, and then you come back with the tried and true.
Can I ask?
Like very similar to my fear of going to Nigeria, because I watch acts from Nigeria and they'll get on, and for the first 3 minutes they just dance, like the energy is like hype up here, and I'm like, when I walk onto stage, I wait for the music to die, then it's hi, and I'm like, I'm gonna die on my ass in Nigeria. I'm gonna die on my ass there. I can't dance.
Yeah, Nigerian audiences, they would say we understand comedy in our own way. And I mean, I've done okay in Nigeria, but I remember when I died in Nigeria, a place called Port Harcourt, which is outside of the capital city, outside of Lagos. It's in southern part of Nigeria. They speak with a dialect, their whole vibe is different, man. It's like going down to the deep south, right? And and they had 25 comics in the lineup. And this is a typical Basket Mouth national tour. Right? 25 comedians. I came on at 1 a.m., right, on this stage. It was a big stage. And I started, man. I was tired, but I was confident. I'm going to do my thing. And I think by the time I'd come on, they had done so much pidgin English, so much broken English. I've come on as this, and to be fair, the host introduced me as
You changed the channel.
He's a British comedian. So I've come on with this, with my British self. And literally, there was no laughter for the first 2 minutes. And then all I heard was, I heard that for like 30 seconds. That moment in time, I said, yeah, I'm never doing comedy.
Is that a boo?
You know that feeling? But I've learned that with Nigerians, just like what Chris just said, literally, that's why I appreciated it. You've got to attack them. I've done shows in Lagos where it's live. The AMVCAs. This is African Movie Awards. It goes across all the states and on the continent, and it is live. And it's an award ceremony, but they have a 10-minute slot for a comic. And you literally have to come and do your thing. And I remember learning from that and just literally attacking, straight in. I would speak like them. I'll take the piss out of them a little bit. I'll talk about being Congolese and being proud. Then I'll say everything that's wrong with you guys, with you Nigerians, everything that, and use that accent. I almost become Nigerians. I almost become a Nigerian, So it's like, attack, man. You have to.
Wait, you were about to say something, Kay.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, to all you guys, really, what's your writing process? I mean, I'm not a stand-up comic at all, but I just want to know, do you guys have similar, do you have similar structures in how you put your sketches together?
One, don't call it sketches.
Ever again.
I did that on purpose.
How do you do your little comedy skit? I did that on purpose. How do you come up with your little skit?
These guys said sketches. I just felt shrink the
Your little vignettes, how do they come about?
Do you know what? For me, for the first couple of years of doing stand-up, I didn't really appreciate the fact that I was doing stand-up because I was going around just telling my stories, and people would say, "You know, you're funny. You should keep doing more of it." And I remember people like Kojo, Richard Blackwood, Angela Mardis, you know, great stand-ups in the country, who would say, "You know, you should structure your stuff more." And I would never really understand what that meant because I'm like, I crack the jokes, they laugh. Thank you. But then, you know, you need a 10-minute, you need a 5-minute, you need a 20, you need a half an hour, you need a... So I started to understand that more and more when it'll be like, yo, I'm not getting paid enough for this half an hour, you know? So then I need to do smaller. They need to get £10 worth. So the process for me became, I would always jot down anything. If I'm around my parents, I'm just literally, if I think of something, I'll remember it or I'll write it down and just be there, packed. Yeah. And every now and then I'll revisit. But one thing I've always got strength from was just my improv. So I will go on stage a lot of the time. If I think of something, it doesn't have to be a massive show. I'll go on stage and just drop it and see reaction. And I'll do that a few times and always go back and be like, I've never really had a writing partner. That's one thing I've always lacked. You know, the writing aspect of it. I remember, Tina, when I came to see the Chris Rock show, you mentioned that you guys will chip in sometimes. You know, even during the tour, when it comes off, everyone's like, you could do that bit better, you know. But I've never had that process. You know, I've never really had a writing partner, someone that could guide me. And I often always say I'm still very much, you know, people say you're still a student of comedy. I really much am still at the elementary stages because I've never really gone through certain paths when it comes to the writing.
Chris, do you mind talking about the difference between writing for stand-up versus writing for the TV show?
It just hit me. Eddie's picture is Little Yachty. So you said the difference between writing for TV as opposed to writing stand-up?
Right.
Totally different. TV, there's a script, there's characters, there's a page count, and you're gonna get notes constantly. There's a first draft, there's a second draft. You know, it starts with the outline. So if you're talking about a TV show, say,
right.
It's
so are you just punching in jokes, or are you?
No. There's no joke. Your whole goal is this. So let's just say the show Grownish. Hold on a second. I think Loisa was getting attacked.
Sorry.
No, man.
My pet. The neighbors got.
Can't hear you.
My pet lion. My pet lion jumped over the fence, so I had to go fetch it before the neighbors.
Hello, bro.
I said you were getting attacked.
Tina's rolling her eyes now because she knows the reality. 20 years ago, you'd have been like, oh my God.
All Africans have lions.
Every single one.
He's like, yeah, right.
He's making fun of us, Chris. He's making fun of us.
Oh, I know. They all have a pet lion.
Chris was like, what's his name?
You're barefoot.
It's saying that. Is it
Kutlwano.
Kutlwano. Okay, KD. KD.
That was kind of, yo, KD, how's the injury, man? How's the injury? KD,
you're an exit of all time. Off ramp.
Hey, you're a writer as well, a writer producing, or you're?
No, I'm a I suppose what you guys would call it is a showrunner in America.
Right.
So I create shows and build the writing rooms, and then.
But are you a writer as well?
No, not.
Right, because there's two different types of showrunners. There's the writing showrunner, and then there's sometimes someone who runs all the production. So that's what you would do. You're more exactly production, not the writer's room. Okay.
Yeah. So what I do, so in a nutshell, what I would do is, for example, with the show that I've got right now, was my brainchild. I had an idea about where I wanted to be. I set out the characters. Then I linked up with a team of writers. We got in, fleshed out the story. I'm there. We're checking in. Okay, cool. And then at the same time, I'm building the production team to go and make the show. So, and I keep my eye on all the elements, the post-production, the writing, all of that stuff.
Is that impossible?
So you like pain, essentially.
I like pain, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's you've chosen two painful jobs to do at once.
Absolutely. No, right now I've got a daily. I've got a show that's on daily. Called Gomorrah. It's on Mondays to Fridays, which is well, it's not on now because we got locked down because of it had to stop because of COVID. But we'll be back to shooting from next week. But yeah.
It's like a telenovela, yes.
Exactly.
Oh, there's an Italian series called Gomorrah on Netflix too. That's very good.
So Gomorrah for us is actually an area called Alexandra. It's one of the
Alexandra
is a hardcore ghetto.
Trevor talked about it in his book.
Yeah, Alexandra is no joke. Yeah, you gotta be. So they call people from call Alexandra Gomorrah. So that's why we call it Gomorrah. Yeah.
Tina, I know you want to hear about my writing process, but they don't care.
Yeah, no,
I want to hear.
Only because I like to see the different range that comedians can do. You can go from stand-up, you can be a host, you can be a writer. Like.
So I do what he does as well, except on a creative front. So, for example, let's say Grownish. So we start off with, we want to break down the arc of the series, right? What's going to happen to this character on episode 1, and where is she on episode 12? So we're gonna have one-liners on what's gonna happen. Boom, she gets to school. Boom, she meets her best friend. Boom, she meets a boy. Boom, she's another boy. She has her first sip of alcohol. She has sex. She thinks she's pregnant. Whatever, right? So we create an arc. Then we'll try to figure out the story for each episode, with A, B, and a C story. Then we'll assign a writer to write that, and they'll be sent off for a week to go write the show. And it was pretty similar on Real Husbands as well, except one season we did a show where there was an arc, more serialized, and then some episodes were standalones. Like in this episode, Kevin is gonna go to an acting class and find out that Boris is the acting teacher, and they're gonna have a fucking fight and blah blah blah. And you don't need to watch this one. You don't need to watch number 1 to watch number 2, right? So the processes are different in terms of that. It was easier on Real Husbands because there was so much ad-libbing. So for a 30-minute show, which ends up really being about 22, we only wrote like 15 to 16 pages. Now usually it's a page a minute.
Yeah.
Kevin, JB Smoove, Dwayne Martin, all very great improvisational actors. So this is the scenario, and we would let them go.
For us, in terms of putting together a telenovela, we have a similar thing. We've got the big grand arc of the season, right? So we've got 260 episodes. What happens in episode 1?
Whoa.
Right.
What did you say?
Yeah, 260 episodes.
How many?
260. That's Monday to Friday, every day for a year.
Oh, so this is a soap opera.
Telenovela, yeah. It's a grand arc. Yeah,
God.
yeah. So,
Damn.
yeah.
260.
It's crazy.
How many writers?
Our writing room
like 230.
No,
We've never had anything like that. That shit is incredible.
Right.
My next question is, and I'm sorry because you got me like, how can we bring this shit here? What are your budgets?
We're at for a season for 260 episodes was $7 million.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I heard 7 million. I didn't put it.
So give me an example. Like your highest paid actor is making what a week?
$6,000 a month.
That's how much the lead actor is making. This person's on the cover of magazines in town and billboards.
Yep.
6,000 American. And so, what is rent? And a nice 2-bedroom apartment.
You know how it is over here. We don't get paid for syndication, right? So across the continent, like, I've seen Isibai in Pidgin English, like shows that I've done in Pidgin English. Funniest shit you've ever seen. It's hilarious.
Oh, the big difference, and we've talked about this before, is not getting a syndication.
Yeah, you don't get anything. You don't get a damn thing.
Like
when you get an extra, when you get not necessarily syndication, but if it gets sold into another territory, that should be another check.
Nothing.
It's gone. It's gone,
Chris. They had my show sell. Canal Plus bought 2 of our shows from Mnet. I got it because somebody at Mnet accidentally on purpose forwarded an email that I wasn't supposed to be on. And I said, you sold our show for how much? And we got fuck all with it.
No, but that's got to be a contractual conversation. No, I mean, how does that?
There's no way. You guys gotta
change it in the Constitution.
The industry standards are, they're just different.
In South Africa, it's he who pays owns. That's what it is. It boils down to that. Doesn't matter.
Right, but I think now you being as successful as you are, you need to figure out a way to negotiate. No, I'm just saying right now. I mean, you don't know because you haven't asked. You know what I mean? So now you got to go listen. I need to get whatever 100,000 rand every time this shit goes to another territory, and they'll go fuck you. We're only gonna give you 60, and then now you got fucking 60. You know what I mean? But
yeah, for sure.
I think you need to at least.
Americans, I like Americans. I just like the way you people land and just go. Bah! I want this gorilla to turn into a parrot.
Tariq has to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh, because you got your tour. You got
right. the guy who cleans the albums is at the door.
My door. I was gonna say with regards to my process, it's a lot like my approach to music in that I've tried to remember shit like ideas that come, or like I'll have I'll think of a dope bar or hear or read a brilliant word or a little section of something that I feel like is going to become a great verse or a great song, and I always have to jot it down. You know what I'm saying? Like, because whenever I say, okay, I can repeat it to myself 100 times and feel like I've committed it to memory, and you're never gonna remember that shit. So the funniest stuff is the real shit that comes to you, that happens to you during the course of your day in life, and you should always make like a little note. I got a bunch of notes here. I want you guys to see that shit, but a bunch of this is and it's these are just thoughts. Like some of this stuff, it could
Are they black thoughts?
Hey, you make me do it. My guy, I've got to be fast.
I told you, you're African me, but you're 20 years younger.
Some of these lines could become a song, some could become, a joke. But I feel like for me, the most important part of my process is, jotting down, like making a note of those ideas as they sort of come. And on that note, I'm out.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, that's great.
Pleasure, man.
Oh, I was gonna give you one note, Tariq.
Yep.
As you're going through this process, make sure you're going up in different rooms, right? The mainstream room, the little bodega-ass comedy. And then sometimes go up as Tariq.
Yeah.
Don't go up with all these credits. You know what I mean? And then fucking have to. One thing I liked about London, and I'll let you go, is that I was trying to tell the MC my credits. I'm like, I was on this. They was like, they don't give a fuck. We don't have. I said no, but I was on. They bloke, whatever he fucking called me. It's fucking jokes. I was like, damn.
Love, man. Yo, this has been great. I want to thank you guys, man. Thanks, everybody for taking the time today. And
what y'all doing later?
Yeah, I'll probably see you later on date night, man.
Please, watch the. Oh shit! What time is it? I don't know what time it is. 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And what is it? It's probably Friday in Africa right now. It's so.
But you know what, guys? I've got to say, Martina, thank you for even inviting me.
Absolutely.
Speaking to all the brothers here I've learned so much, and I want to speak to Chris and KD more about just the writing process. Like I think that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, you're a natural writer.
And I really want to understand and learn more. So please, let's stay in touch. But this is beautiful.
Yay.
All right, Tina's got to go.
For being here, I really appreciate your time.
You probably, if you ever date a comedian and you wonder why was his show at 8 and he didn't get home till 3, it's because this shit is better than the fucking. We will do this shit. I just met these guys, right?
Hours.
We can do this shit for hours.
For hours.
I know. That's why I prefer tour managing comedians. It's much more fun. It's only
all right, one love, you guys. Give them everybody, get our stuff. I look
Cheers,
forward
everyone.
to
Thank you for your time.
Look forward to talking to you guys again. Thank you.
Sure.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.